Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Krypton. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's start off with some lighter stuff because there's some pretty heavy stuff that went down in this episode. Let's start off, it's kind of heavy, but it's also very light as the whole lightest situation. Obviously, learning more about Zod just needed a mother that would fit the mold to be more accepting of who he was. It is so interesting. The only way you could get your mom to be more like who you want her to be, to kind of make her match who you are, you needed to get a clone. And even then when you took that clone, you had to make that clone, kind of mess with that clone's brain to make her the way you want her to, because obviously it's an exact clone of Lyta. So even though it's a clone, this clone Lyta would still be against you. So it's actually kind of twisted, it's just kind of like a boy who wants his mother to be more like him and love him and accept him and stand with him, because you can't have a mother, because it's not only is she like your second in command, she's literally your mother. If your second in command and mother isn't by your side in all this, that speaks volumes. So it's more of a perception type of thing, which is kind of interesting to think about. But what I really like too is this was a nice, very heart-to-heart she had with both Dev and Jaina this episode. Because, she's looking at Jaina like, how can you look at me like that? Like, I'm still your daughter. She's like, what are you telling me? It's like, I did the wrong thing. But Jaina's like, no, it was on me. The reason why things happened the way they did, you did what you thought was best. Because the way I raised you to be this warrior, kind of hard and kind of not listening to your heart, essentially. But she's like, no, don't take all that blame on yourself, Mom. I made a choice and then made the wrong choice. But it's the thing that Jaina's like, the fact of the matter is we both made mistakes. And the fact of the matter is, but we were given the opportunity to be here together right now. We have a chance to change everything. That the Zod name doesn't have to be associated with blood and death. That doesn't have to be all the legacy that is our family. Because that's what their family's known for. They're being the warriors. They're the ones that get stuff done when no one else can. They're the ones who get their hands bloody. Because the sad thing is their history, all it's ever going to be known for is Zod. Zod's going to be the representation of a borderlining genocidal dictator, It's like, if you're not on my side, I'm going to wipe you out, So, but it's like, we can change all that. The fact of the matter is, Lyta's like, can you forgive me? She's like, there is nothing to forgive. So it's nice, especially because, in between, Jaina has grown a lot, over the course of season 1, but after everything that she went down, it made her look back on, the way she was, kind of like this perpetual history, that's kind of been passed down in the Zod family. She wants to change that because it changed with Lyta, because Lyta wasn't like Jaina. To be fair, Jaina wasn't like Jaina until her dad kind of forged her into this weapon, and Lyta was in the process of becoming like that. She kind of dealt with the duality of being who she wanted to be, also struggling to be what she needed to be and who she was supposed to be as a Zod, And then there's everything with Dev, because for Dev, it's because, Lyta's like, what was my clone like? It's like, she was like you in every way, even that sparkle in her eye when she laughs. But the fact of the matter is, what made things different was him and the clone were together. It's like, whoa, I would have never guessed that. But it's like Lyta was in a vulnerable moment. The clone was that suffering after having lost Seg. And it was, too much. And so they got together to fill that hole in her. But even Dev is like, well, for one, it's like, it gives him everything that he always wanted, because he wanted to be with Lyta. If it means I feel that hole in your heart, good. But also, the fact of the matter is, he's like, I always thought we were going to be together. I thought we were destined. And the fact of the matter is, you would fill the hole in my heart for all that I've lost. So for him, it's like, I got everything I wanted. But even in the end, it didn't fix anything. It didn't fix that hole in his heart. So I'm sure, because it's kind of interesting, because it's like that, it's a love square situation to a certain extent, because, it's a complicated thing, because obviously we know Dev is in love with Lyta. That's apparently clear in season 1. But I also love that, Nyssa, it's like, hey, the fact is, Lyta is the love of your life, huh? The fact is, I'm afraid that you might be mine. Because it's clear when you look at stuff in season 1, you're like, oh yeah, you can definitely tell that Nyssa started yes, in the beginning it was about manipulating Seg, but there was a part of her that fell for who he was. The fact is, he saw her in a way no one else was even willing to see her, just saw her as a Vex like her dad. But it's like, he saw who she really was underneath, mistakes and all. And she was someone he can trust in, and I think that speaks volumes for her, who kind of had to go through life and being the way that her dad kind of forged her to be this person who used and manipulated people, like. But despite that, Seg still so stood by her side, and them having a son together, like, obviously there's something there, and it's like, oh, that's complicated on many different fronts. But it's actually kind of interesting because Lyta was able to convince Sagittari. It's like, hey, the fact is, Zod, he made a clone. Like, the fact of the matter is, he's not someone that should be, giving your loyalty. Because the fact is, what you do as Sagittari is protect the people of Krypton. And if we keep going down this route, so many Kryptonian lives will be lost. That's not what this is all about. So she's like, basically convincing these two Sagittari to join her cause. And she's like, follow my plan, which I'm so curious what that plan is necessarily. I'm sure it's going to lead to kind of like getting Zod to drop his guard because of her. It's like, if they bring her back, maybe it'll kind of like, Zod will be kind of in a more vulnerable state. So there's that side of things. Other things is everything on Wagthor, like everyone's reunited. Seg's there with his grandfather again after all this time, meets up with Adam and Kim, and I love like their reunited hugging. It's like Kim and Seg first, and then Adam's got a hug on top, and it's just kind of like, okay, and it's beautiful. And it's like, oh yeah, you should have been here, Kim. He's been crushing ass. It's like, okay. And they're walking away, and Kim's like, Adam, what do you mean by that? When you were saying I was crushing ass, did you mean Adam? And trying to get an explanation on it. But then, lo and behold, everything, starts unfolding because it's not just an army that, Zod is sending their way. It's none other than Doomsday himself. There's actually a couple Sagittarii up there, but it's like, no, Doomsday is pretty much all you need. Because luckily for him, there was enough Black Mercy that was in his system to make it so that he kneels before Zod, which once again kind of just shows you how power trippy he is, that literally everyone to show his dominance over them, it's you kneel to me. So Doomsday's there. It was actually a pretty badass moment where everyone's like firing at Doomsday. You see all those bullets hitting him, and because I guess no matter how strong he is, like it still takes a little while to kind of adapt to stuff. So the lasers were kind of knocking him back, but I guess he took enough damage from them that he kind of like. Well, because the fact is, I forgot, it's like, no, he has to die from whatever it is that is affecting him. It has to kill him, or maybe there is a certain point in time where his adaptation will kind of kick in, and, taking enough laser blasts would kind of, like, affect him like that, or was it just supposed to be like, no, it's enough to kind of slow him down a bit? Either way, it's pretty badass, and it's like, yeah, we got it, but, like Val is telling him, is like, run, and they're like, no, let's kind of lead in the group. It's like, we can't let this get to our base. We got to hold our ground. And then, as you would guess, Doomsday rips through them, literally. I wasn't expecting, like, this episode is hands down the bloodiest episode. I mean, to be fair, because even the lights are getting our throats slit, I didn't even think about, like, I mean, it wasn't bloody, I mean, it's still bloody, but it's like, holy crap. It's actually kind of something, I'll go ahead and bring it up. What about, Jack Sword? Last time when you saw her, she was on Wagthor. I'm just throwing that in there because obviously I'll get to everything later on, but it's just something that kind of popped in my mind. It's like, right, not unless she found a way off the planet, the moon. And that's something to kind of keep in mind. So not unless she ended up secretly sneaking on board, I have no idea. She might, I don't know. We'll kind of leave it at that. But, yeah, like, even at one point, like, you see him grab one dude, and then, like, blood splatters on a rock, and there's that dead guy, and then Doomsday's foot just lands on him, and it squishes. I'm like, oh my god. It surprised me on some occasions where it's like, holy, like, because it's not a show I would have expected to see any gore. And you see Doomsday standing there covered in blood. It's like, geez. Now he's rushing through the tunnels. It's like, what do we do? Basically, the plan is to get everyone out. They're going to have to get everyone to that ship that's, there's most likely some, Sagittari up there, which I love. This episode gave Nyssa her moment of being a badass. She's leading the charge, taking Sagittari out, picking up the guns, bam, not even just gunplay, freaking hand-to-hand knife, slow motion kicks to the face. It's like, yo, Nyssa looked like a super badass. It was like, yo, I like that it gave her moment to shine like that. It was like, yo, yeah, let everyone else do what they got to do, but focus on me kicking ass, or as, taking ass and kicking names. I talked about that recently in a video, but that video literally probably is not going to go up until like 2 weeks from now. It's a whole thing. Don't worry about it. It's a reference I've made before, but I recently remembered where I remembered the reference from. It's a whole thing. Nevertheless, but I really like that. But at the same time, it's like you have Val, Kim, Adam, and Seg still being behind because they're trying to obviously get people through. They're also setting up all these charges to bring down a tunnel on top of Doomsday to kind of slow them down long enough so they can get out. But because the power supply was kind of messed with, they can't do long range. So Seg is like, no, I'm going to do it. But that doesn't work out because Doomsday's wrecking shop. The squad that they were with got ripped apart. Once again, quite literally. Adam and Val. Adam gets crushed by like some rocks. Luckily he's alive, but it seems like his legs might be messed up. So that sucks. Because I'd skipped over it, but there was that line of like, okay, what do we do about Doomsday? And Adam was like, we run. But, Sega's like, no, there's got to be a way. It's like, he's like, no, dude, you don't understand. This thing is an unstoppable killing machine. You run and live to fight another day. Because the fact of the matter is, it's like literally the one person in the universe that could go toe-to-toe with this thing doesn't exist anymore. Which is like, right, you kind of have to remember that. I'm also curious, I guess because that still hasn't reset. Because if you remember correctly, like there was the whole... Once again, I was never sure if that was supposed to be his blanket or was his cape. I'm sure it's supposed to be his blanket. But the fact of the matter is, like, the whole thing of showing you, like, oh, if the timeline changed in season 1, last time we saw it changed it to Zod's symbol. I guess that's kind of gone now. I guess that's not something they're really going to use as a plot device to kind of show you where things kind of stand. I guess it's going to be like, well, you're always going to be thinking ambiguously in the back of your mind where things kind of stand timeline-wise. Does Cal not exist? Well, obviously he doesn't because Jor-El is taken by Brainiac, so that's obviously a whole thing in itself. But because obviously you can tell, like, even back in season 1, you had Adam being freaked out about knowing what Doomsday was all about. It's like, of course, everyone knows who Doomsday is and what it does. Once again, let's not forget, there's also the complicated thing of, yes, Superman has beaten this thing, but let's not forget, continuity-wise, this thing has beaten him on many different occasions. So it's not always like Clark came out for the win. It's like it's always a struggle to fight this thing. And even if the Man of Steel, even the Woman of Steel, because I think Kara's referred to as a Woman of Steel. I'm about to say Lady of Steel. Woman of Steel, even she would, I'm sure even both of them working together would have a hard time taking down Doomsday. I mean, even the Justice League movie Batman v Superman showed you even like Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman working together, still struggle. It's a whole thing. Once again, I'm going on a huge tangent, so I do apologize. But nevertheless, then you had the moment where Kim is like, no, I'm not going to let you sacrifice yourself. Because, and I love that moment for Kim. It's like, the fact of the matter is you can't do this. I get it. You're thinking because you're an L, it's kind of your responsibility. You have to be the hero. But it's like at certain points, other people have to step up, because for himself, it's like even comparing who Kim was in season 1 to who he is now has shown himself to be a good leader, a capable hero when the time came, and even telling Seg, it's like, you think that this is all your fault because of Zod being your son, but it's like, no, people have to make their choices. Once again, people have to find out when it's time to step up, and this is his moment. And him and Seg having that heart to heart, him being like, I love you, man. Like, Seg's begging him not to do this. It's like, no, let me be the one to do it. But it's like, Kim is also doing this because it's like, your son is still out there. Your son's going to need you, so let me do this. Let me have my hero moment. And he walks in, and you can obviously tell he's scared because, there's dismembered body parts everywhere, but that resolves him even more to like, no, I got to do this. And he picks up the trigger, and Doomsday's there. I was like, is he just going to press a button? But it's like, no, Doomsday punches into his chest. I was like, oh man, that's going to suck. I was like, but at least you get the final when the bomb goes off. But he kind of reaches for something. What's he about to do? Attack him? And then he pulls out his middle finger and laughs. Doomsday rips off his head. Once again, a gory episode. I was like, oh, Kim, no. That's the most brutal way to go out. But in that moment, he drops the device and the bomb goes off. But because of the state of the planet and everything, because of the stuff that Zod was using as fuel that's from this planet, he's going to use to basically fuel his armada, ended up lighting up, and basically the entire moon explodes. Obviously, everyone's able to get off the planet and everything. Once again, I bring up the example of like, what about Jack Sawyer? Did she sneak aboard when no one was watching? Did she see this opportunity happen? Because if not, she's dead on that moon. Luckily, I was like, well, there's still that skimmer left. So yeah, Seg's in that trying to get off the planet. it reminds, like, if I had to make a comparison, nerdy comparison, obviously, because I'm me, makes you immediately think of some Namek stuff. But then at the same time, it's like, well, you can also think of Krypton, because if you want a more precise, more accurate depiction within the universe, it's like literally Krypton exploding is kind of like that, which is almost sad, because you can almost think, like, that's kind of their future they're seeing. That's foreshadowed, well, that's what they can kind of expect potentially in the future. But they don't know that Seg's got off the planet, so it's like, well, off the moon, so it's like, wow. So that's obviously hitting Val pretty hard. Obviously, it's hitting Nyssa hard. Obviously, Adam too. And even Adam doesn't know at this point about Kim, so that's going to be hard for him to learn. Dude. And what about Doomsday? Is Doomsday dead? No. Oh, an exploding planet? No, that bastard's too tough to die. Like, I'm sure he might be floating somewhere in space, and that might be the thing later on that, like, maybe it crashes back down to Krypton, or maybe it's somewhere floating in space and eventually someone else comes along the way and picks it up. Maybe get a Lobo situation of like Lobo like riding around in his bike, because if I remember correctly, if I'm like the cartoon, I know Lobo can, like, I'm sure like breathing in space isn't a thing for him. I mean, it depends on how they want to handle it. Maybe he has like a helmet, because I don't remember, I think he was just like riding around on his space bike in space, like without any trouble. But then again, it's like certain continuities make it apparently that Superman and Supergirl can't breathe in outer space, which I was like, I thought they could. I think maybe that's certain continuities or something. Maybe that's not true to them in the comic books, but maybe like people take liberties in certain regards. Maybe it's like if you get far enough in the atmosphere, sure, but if you get far, far, far into the atmosphere, then it's an issue. Like once you start heading into space, it's a problem, but maybe higher in the atmosphere, they're fine. But regardless. So, but I doubt Doomsday's dead. I doubt an exploding planet's enough to kill that bastard. Because for one, it needs to be around for Superman to potentially fight in the future of this continuity. So that's where my mindset's at. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this takes us. Obviously, next week's episode is, in fact, the season finale. It's going to be so interesting to see where because there's so much like left open. Obviously, there's the whole Brainiac thing. Once again, there is Lobo. He knows about Krypton, so he might find his way to, as he refers to as Krypton, might find his way circling down. Like I said, that depends on, maybe he ends up crossing paths with that whole Doomsday situation. Maybe not. Maybe it's only going to be like a small fraction of Doomsday survives, but then he kind of starts adapting and regenerating, kind of similar to Lobo. Maybe not. And then there's the whole thing about, well, what did they do about Zod? Are they going to lock Zod up? Are they going to kill Zod? It's going to be that thing of, even if you stop him now, yes, it stops like the future from changing too much and him kind of going on his, dictatorship, like raid across the galaxy or the universe. But then it begs the question, like, is it going to be a situation where, well, because things are different now, does that mean that Zod could potentially grow up to be different? Or is, because he was more of a product of just the way the Zod family was and just everything that went down with Brainiac, taking Kandor, what that meant for Lyda, like all those were contributing factors in everything. So I'm curious to see how they plan to kind of play this whole situation out. It's going to be interesting as literally this war does come to an end. Because, like, obviously, like, you might have a situation where Zod might be under the impression like, oh, they're dead. I mean, he might try and report to the ship and find out what happened. Maybe not. Or maybe they can pretend like, yeah, the Resistance is dead. We're coming back. Yeah, Doomsday was on the planet. He's going to. But so was the Resistance? Maybe not. I'm very, very interested to see how they handle things in the season finale. Like I said, especially finding out what Lyda has planned. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.